Well, in honor of Juneteenth, the day that blacks were unleashed, literally, onto the public in Texas in 1865, I thought I would read something relevant. Perhaps you've heard of the talk. The talk is something common amongst blacks, and it refers to the advice that black kids receive from their parents, or should I say their parent, since they hardly ever have two, or their grandma, or whoever ends up raising them moment to moment. But it usually involves warning the kid that the whole world is racist and out to get them. Now, you would think that it would involve letting the kids know how to avoid a potentially deadly interaction with the police, considering that the police are super duper racist and looking to kill them at any moment. But that's not what the talk is. It is an encouragement to resist all cooperation with whites because whites cannot be trusted. Well, two can play at that game because it turns out that there's some warnings that white people have about blacks. And Mr. John Derbyshire put them down on paper in 2012 in his article called The Non-Black Version of the Talk. And I'd like to read it for you today. There is so much talk about the talk. Sean O'Reilly was 16 when his mother gave him the talk that most black parents give their teenage sons. Denisa R. Superville of the Hackensack Record tells us. Meanwhile, down in Atlanta, her sons were 12 and 8 when Marilyn Tillman realized it was time for her to have the talk. Leonard Green talks about the talk in the New York Post. Someone bylined as KJ Del Antonia talks about the talk in the New York Times. Daryl Owens talks about the talk in the Orlando Sentinel. Yes, talk about the talk is all over. There is a talk that non-black Americans have with their kids too. My own kids, now 19 and 16, have had it in bits and pieces as subtopics have arisen. If I were to assemble it into a single talk, it would look something like the following. Number 1. Among your fellow citizens are 40 million who identify as black and whom I shall refer to as black. The cumbersome and MLK non-compliant term African American seems to be in decline, thank goodness. Colored and Negro are archaisms. What you must call the N-word is used freely among blacks, but is taboo to non-blacks. Number 2, American blacks are descended from West African populations with some white and Aboriginal American admixture. The overall average of non-African admixture is 20 to 25%. The admixture distribution is nonlinear, though. It seems that around 10% of the African American population is more than half European in ancestry. Number 3, your own ancestry is mixed North European and Northeast Asian, but blacks will take you to be white. Number 4, the default principle in everyday personal encounters is that as a fellow citizen with the same rights and obligations as yourself, any individual black is entitled to the same courtesies you would extend to a non-black citizen. That is good manners and good citizenship. In some unusual circumstances, however, e.g. paragraph 10H below, this default principle should be overridden by considerations of personal safety. Number 5, as with any population of such a size, there is great variation among blacks in every human trait, except obviously the trait of identifying oneself as black. They come fat, thin, tall, short, dumb, smart, introverted, extroverted, honest, crooked, athletic, sedentary, fastidious, sloppy, amiable, and obnoxious. There are black geniuses and black morons. There are black saints and black psychopaths. In a population of 40 million, you will find almost any human type. Only at the far, far extremes of certain traits are there absences. There are, for example, no black Fields Medal winners. While this is civilizationally consequential, it will not likely ever be important to you personally. Most people live and die without ever meeting or wishing to meet a Fields Medal winner. Number 6, as you go through life, however, you will experience an ever larger number of encounters with Black Americans. Assuming your encounters are random, for example, not restricted only to Black convicted murderers or to Black investment bankers, the law of large numbers will inevitably kick in. You will observe that the means, the averages of many traits are very different for Black and white Americans, as has been confirmed by methodical inquiries in the human sciences. Number 7. Of most importance to your personal safety are the very different means for antisocial behavior, which you will see reflected in, for instance, school disciplinary measures, political corruption, and criminal convictions. Number 8. These differences are magnified by the hostility many Blacks feel towards whites. Thus, while Black-on-white behavior is more antisocial in the average than is white-on-white behavior, average Black-on-white behavior is a degree more antisocial yet. Number 9. A small cohort of Blacks, in my experience around 5%, is ferociously hostile to whites and will go to great lengths to inconvenience or harm us. A much larger cohort of Blacks, around half, will go along passively if the 5% take leadership in some event. They will do this out of racial solidarity, the natural willingness of most human beings to be led, and a vague feeling that whites have it coming. Number 10. Thus, while always attentive to the particular qualities of individuals, on the many occasions where you have nothing to guide you but those mean differences, use statistical common sense. 10a. Avoid concentrations of Blacks not all known to you personally. B. Stay out of heavily Black neighborhoods. C. If planning a trip to a beach or amusement park at some date, find out whether it is likely to be swamped with Blacks on that date. Neglect of that one got me the closest I have ever gotten to death by gunshot. D. Do not attend events likely to draw a lot of Blacks. E. If you are at some public event which the number of Blacks suddenly swells, leave as quickly as possible. F. Do not settle in a district or a municipality run by Black politicians. G. Before voting for a Black politician, scrutinize his or her character much more carefully than you would a white. H. Do not act the Good Samaritan to Blacks in apparent distress, e.g., on the highway. I. If accosted by a strange Black in the street, smile, say something polite, but keep moving. Number 11. The mean intelligence of Blacks is much lower than for whites. The least intelligent, 10% of whites, have IQs below 81, but 41% of Blacks have IQs that low. Only 1 Black in 6 is more intelligent than the average white. 5 whites out of 6 are more intelligent than the average Black. These differences show in every test of general cognitive ability that anyone of any race or nationality has been able to devise. They are reflected in countless everyday situations. Life is an IQ test. Number 12. There is a magnifying effect here too, caused by affirmative action. In a pure meritocracy, there would be very low proportions of Blacks in cognitively demanding jobs. Because of affirmative action, the proportions are higher. In government work, they are very high. Thus, in those encounters with strangers that involve cognitive engagement, ceteris paribus, the Black stranger will be less intelligent than the white. In such encounters, therefore, for example, at a government office, you will, on average, be dealt with more competently by a white than a Black. If that hostility-based magnifying effect is also in play, you will be dealt with more politely too. The DMV lady is a statistical truth, not a myth. Number 13. In that pool of 40 million, there are nonetheless many intelligent and well-socialized Blacks. I'll use IWSB as an ad hoc abbreviation. You should consciously seek opportunities to make friends with IWSBs. In addition to the ordinary pleasures of friendship, you will gain an amulet against potentially career-destroying accusations of prejudice. Number 14. Be aware, however, that there is an issue of supply and demand here. Demand comes from organizations and businesses keen to display racial propriety by employing IWSBs, especially in positions at the interface with the public. Corporate sales reps, TV news presenters, press officers for government agencies, etc., with corresponding depletion in less visible positions. There is also strong private demand from middle and upper class whites for personal bonds with IWSBs for reasons given in the previous paragraph and also the next paragraph as status markers. Unfortunately, the demand is greater than the supply, so IWSBs are something of a luxury good, like antique furniture or corporate jets, boasted of by upper class whites and wealthy organizations and coveted by the less prosperous. To be an IWSB in present-day U.S. society is a height of felicity rarely attained by any group of human beings in history. Try to curb your envy, it will be taken as prejudice. You don't have to follow my version of the talk point for point, but if you are white or Asian and have kids, you owe it to them to give them some version of the talk. It will save them a lot of time and trouble spent figuring things out for themselves. It may save their lives. Anyways, that's the end of the non-black version of the talk. If you enjoyed this video and type of content that I'm making, consider giving this video a like or maybe subscribing. I will see you all in the next video. Peace.